Hello ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, my name is Brad. This is my channel Animate Orange, where I build a lot of 3D metal models and show you how I do it. And today on the table, something that I've been looking forward to and recently acquired, the Moby Dick book sculpture. And by say acquired, this is actually a gift from a viewer, Al Graves. Thank you very much for sending this to me. I found this in my P.O. box here very recently, and thank you very much because, well, I've got a little bit of a diorama idea in my head to show some love to some models that rarely ever get the love that I think they should get, and this will help me, or at least in part. But more of that down the road. Today I have this neat little sculpture build of the Moby Dick book and the whale and the ship. This ought to be a lot of fun, and this packaging, they've updated the packaging and this is pretty cool. I like on the back how they've added a gauge of how easy it is. That's new, and that's kind of cool. So according to this is slightly above medium, getting a little bit warm. Well, I guess I'll be the judge of that. Let's open this up, see what's inside, and put it together. Moby Dick book sculpture. What's inside? This will be my first book sculpture. What's inside? 2 metal sheets, some large pieces, some smallish pieces, and a sheet of instructions. This is kind of the newer style. It's sideways, long ways, not tall. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. So starting at the front, as usual, the Metal logo, the line drawing of the completed model and sheet. Rather elongated sheet, it looks like. And then we have the 360 view, the QR code that you can scan, or the web address. You can go see a 360-degree view of the model. A sample part with a notation about insertion tabs, insertion holes, and fold lines. The legend. I'll go down this real quick. E stands for the engraved side. That's pointing at an engraved side or sometimes section of a part, so you know which way to face it. N points at non-engraved inside, which may have engraving, but it's not detail engraving. Sometimes that gets a little bit tricky. Tension point, that's usually pointing at some sort of alignment detail. These tabs go with this slot, or this part aligns here. Occasionally there's some wording with it to tell you what they're drawing your attention to, not always. Blue circle and green triangle, those have been in these instructions since the start. Blue circle, when you see that at a connection point, it means to insert a tab and fold it 90 degrees. A green triangle means to insert a tab and twist it 90 degrees. And we have some recommended tools over here, which I'll talk about the tools that I use here in a second. And we have a drawing of the 2 metal sheets, and I'm just going to grab one as an example. I've grabbed this one. You see it's an outline of this sheet with all the parts numbered so that you can find the parts when you're in the assembly flowchart looking for them and put the model together. And moving over to page 2, over here we start with the assembly flowchart with part 1 and 2, and those go together, and then 3 adds on right here, and slide over and add on 4, and you end up with that. And that's pretty much how the directions go. Add the parts on and shape them as shown, following the arrows, occasionally dealing with a sub-assembly or two, or with the arrows turning around and reversing direction on you. You get to the end of page 2, go to page 3 on the back, pick up where you left off, follow the arrows, on to page 4, same as before. When you get to the bottom, you are finished with your model. Let's take a moment to talk about the tools that I use. This is my standard set that I use in most every build. I have long needle nose pliers and flat nose pliers, useful for a variety of different things. I have flush clippers that I use to cut the parts off the trees. It makes it quick and easy. And then I have some precision tweezers, one with a very pointed end, one that's had the pointed end ground down slightly, and one with a flat, sort of curved end. Great for getting into curved areas. And then I have a standard set of tweezers with an angled tip. These come in one of the Iconics models, and I love them and use them a lot. Ring pliers or round nose pliers can be found with jewelry making tools and work wonderfully for curving delicate and or hard to get to areas. I have a sculpting set here that I occasionally use. And they have all kinds of different shaped ends on them. Some flat, some angled, some spoon. There's a couple of hooks. They're useful for reaching in and bending and pushing and pulling tabs and shaping parts from the inside. I don't use these very often, but they sometimes come in quite handy. They're angled needle nose pliers, and I typically use them for one of two reasons. Either getting into a strange shaped area to twist a tab because of the angle. More frequently though, I use them to fold over flaps along bases or side of parts that are too long for the flat nose pliers, but needle nose pliers can't get to them safely without bending or warping something else. These will grab a longer area and bend it over. Got the basic tools to get me started. Got the two sheets here ready to go in my assembly flowchart. Let's put this together. Putting together the framework for the sails is a little bit tedious. The first two sails were the toughest for me to get on. It took several tries to get close to the right curve. It really took some time to fight with and get the tabs in place in such a tight spot. I thought perhaps I could use the same size sections of the step mandrel to shape the second sail and have an easier time fitting it in place, but the sails are different sizes.
The tabs holding on the hull are meant to be folded over, but as is my usual trick, I am lightly twisting them for now to get started. I meant to come back later and untwist and fold the tabs over, but I got a bit distracted and forgot. I had some problems with the little figure getting in the way. I tried starting by connecting the two tabs at the end of the bow and working the rest of the tabs into place one by one, but when I got to the back, I could not stretch things around and secure the rear tab. I had to loosen the forward tabs to let the side pieces slide back a little and get the last tab in place. Then I can secure the two sides together by the ends. I thought I would compare the bottom of the finished boat with where it attaches to the book and how close I was to the correct shape. I was a bit off, so I carefully stretched things out a little. Unfortunately, all the fighting I did with the hull weakened the already weak connection points for the sails and mast. Since the tabs are all in line, it doesn't take much to bend them. I used a dab of Loctite to strengthen things up and took a break while the glue dried. There's a lot of trimming of spare pieces necessary to complete this build. The waves are pretty straightforward. Just place them in the correct order in the correct location and twist the tabs. I mixed things up a little bit myself so they weren't all facing the same direction to kind of attribute to the randomness of the ocean. Shaping the whale and getting the two halves of the tail together took a lot of test fitting and adjusting. And I give you the Moby Dick book sculpture. Pretty cool. Thank you again, Al Graves, for providing me with this fun model to build. Now this one is challenging, not terribly challenging, but it is a bit challenging. It's not a complicated model like, say, Iron Man or an Iconics model, but it is not an easy model like the Legends models that I've been putting together lately. This is definitely in the mid-range, a bit challenging, but still fun to do and really cool in the end. And I think I've seen it with other people's posts online. It is really neat how you actually have the words in the book. Along the edge of the page down inside you have words from the book on the shark, on the side of the ship, and even on the waves. And you may have noticed that some of the waves I put facing one direction, some I put facing the other, because they're only engraved on one side, and I wanted to kind of keep it the waves mixed up as a chaotic ocean instead of all in a line, whereas some of them would have been identically matched if I hadn't flip-flopped them. But anyway, this build took just under 2 hours to complete, so it is kind of a long model, but very much worth it. I did enjoy it again. The really difficult part is the sails, because that ship is so small. Getting those sails in there, and I think I've already mentioned this in the narration, it's just tedious. It borderlines on tedious, it borderlines on frustrating at a couple of points, but then you get past that and it becomes fun again. And I really enjoyed putting this together. I am surprised at how small it is, a little bit surprised, not completely, because a lot of Metal Earth models are fairly small, so only a little bit. But I've noticed that a lot of people that see this, I tell them about it and they see the finished one. I've seen a lot of people online when they finished it go, that is smaller than I expected, and it kinda is, but that's really not that surprising with a Metal Earth model. If you're a big book fan, I definitely recommend getting this if you're good with your hands, the two together. This is a neat little sculpture, a neat idea of the pages opening up and the book actually reaching out, coming out, the characters, the ship, the whale actually coming out to greet you. Even the little guy on the edge of the boat right there, that's pretty neat. And the inclusion of the words on the page definitely adds to the cool factor. So if you're a book person, get this. Definitely add this to your collection. Take some time, put this together. It's worth the time. And there's another book sculpture out there which I haven't gotten to yet, but someday. And I'll leave it at that. As always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. If you enjoy these builds, consider supporting this channel to bring more larger and more interesting builds to this channel. Check out my Patreon. There's a link in the description down below and at the very end of this video. As always, thank you for watching, and keep on keeping on.